really excited to have Jill here with us today. I met her several months ago, and it's just been amazing to watch. And she'll tell you more about it, but their new space and watch how that transformed a lot of exciting things. So, Mrs. Jill Thomason, pronounce that right, Thomason?
Yes.
Began her dance training at age 5, studying ballet, tap, jazz, and modern dance through the Howard County Gifted and Talented Dance Program in Columbia, Maryland. In 1985, she represented the United States in the 3rd Children's Banner of Peace Assembly held in Sofia, Bulgaria. Her choreography was presented during the festival and received recognition from the Bulgarian press. I could not get her bio to print, and I'm trying to read it off of here. And even with my glasses, I'm like, so sorry. So she went on to received a Creative and Performing Arts full tuition scholarship, and went on to do many amazing things, and moved here to Pennsylvania in 2008. She was employed full-time teaching and choreographing at the Milton Hershey School for the middle and senior divisions in numerous capacities, and then in 2020 she launched Exalt Dance Company into the Elizabethtown area to provide a Christian alternative for students looking for faith-based dance education. She currently teaches multiple comprehensive dance courses to all age groups, preschool through adult, and a typical class includes a fun warm-up and stretching, and also, I keep losing my place, I'm so sorry. Students change then into tap shoes for rhythmic and fine motor instruction, changing one last time into sneakers for some vigorous and exciting hip-hop and jazz combination. Her ultimate goal is creating a performing arts school where students will receive excellent instruction in the diverse creative arts. So let's welcome Jill.
So thank you, Denise, for the introduction, and thank you, Rotary Club, for having me here today to present what Exalt is all about. And so my first question to you is, and if you can raise your hand, that way you get a little view of everybody in the room, is your background include any type of, I'm not going to make you dance, by the way, instruction in dance or potentially instrumental music, or maybe you were more of a fine arts person? Raise your hand if you actually participated in a fine art as a youngster or growing up into your adulthood. Okay, there's a couple hands. That's what I thought I would see. Well, let me ask you this question then. Raise your hand if you have been to a musical production either at the Hershey Theater, maybe at the Fulton Theater, maybe up in New York City on Broadway, if you've ever gone to see a musical production. I figured as such, okay? So the arts in that respect impact all of our lives. And I think it's important that we remember that as I present this today for you to see what Exalt is all about. Because whether you're a participant or you are just a lover of the arts has a deep place within us that I believe we can tap into, especially here now in the Elizabethtown community. So without any further ado, let me start with our first slide, and hopefully this all works well. Which button do I push to play the video?
Try clicking the forward button.
It started Exalt, and I really prayed about the name because I wanted it to emulate what I believe dance is all about, which is movement and energy and being able to praise God through movement. And so Exalt stands for Expressing Hearts and Lives to Touch. And so our mission is that we are a nonprofit performing arts academy and just really want to serve the community and give back. So incorporating things like food drives and also being in the community to really touch people's lives, and especially from where we're coming from for the Lord. I have been praying for a long time, asking God for a dance place that was Christ-centered and had quality dance instruction. And I saw Jill and I was like, wow, she is amazing. She has a passion for dance. She does a really good job. So it was a no-brainer. I signed all 4 girls up for the fall semester, and we've been doing it ever since. My daughter had danced at other studios that were not Christ-centered. And though they were wonderful studios, there was an aspect that was definitely missing.
And I love the fact that they dance to Christian music, and there were times where I would sit in the back and watch, and I would be brought to tears just because it was so beautiful watching these girls worship God through dance. I just, as a mother, appreciated the fact that I can drop my daughter off and not worry about a thing. Just know that she's in great hands and that what she's doing is going to be glorifying to God. That was a huge thing for me. I think that Exalt is just a really great resource for the community. It's such an encouraging, uplifting environment that has done so much for my girls in terms of their attitude and the way that they interact with others. And I think that there are so many in the community that would just benefit from this with their own families.
She's really nice, and she takes time to help us with the steps. Whenever I always came into the studio, she had a smile on her face. Well, I like dancing, and I like making friends. I liked tap.
I would describe Miss Jill as very fun, outgoing, and she incorporates God into like everything that she does as well. So that's awesome.
When she deals with the kids and spends time with them and interacts with them, and Miss Jill has done a great job of just building their confidence. You can just see a genuine love, not just for the kids, but for Christ.
So what I love about the mission of Exalt is that it is Christ-centered and it is designed to glorify God. It's not just about being better or just about dancing for yourself. It's about glorifying God and blessing other people. That's so important.
My one daughter comes Saturday mornings, and then the other comes Monday nights. And Saturday mornings, I'm dragging a little bit, and she is like, has so much energy, is so just excited to engage with them. Like, she just has such a friendly, engaging kind of getting them awake and moving and excited, and I just think it's really wonderful. One thing I love about Miss Jill is that she has a commanding presence. When she enters a classroom, she expects the kids to be in order and ready to jump in. But then I love that she's fun and she's joyful and she can get down and dirty with the kids, and being in an adult class is just as fun. She can joke around. It just is such an enjoyable time, whether you're an adult or you're a child.
And I never thought I'd be a dance dad. I always thought I'd be a sports dad. But God has His own plans, and it's been such a blessing to see the investment that the kids have gotten from Jill.
When I first started Exalt in January of 2021, we had 8 students, and God had given me the verses out of Zechariah 4:10 to not despise small beginnings. And so we do have dance as our core, but that we have musical theater classes, that we are going on mission trips in the summer, that we're doing community outreach all year long so that kids and their families have a place to engage and to give through the arts. And the tagline that I feel like was a part of this whole package is where the arts thrive, the soul comes alive. And so that's what I'm hoping that Exalt is in the community, a place where people start to just come out of themselves so that they can be thriving in whatever gifts they have in the arts. The night of the recital, I look in the room, it's quiet, and Jill is there in a big circle with all the girls, and they are praying and asking God that He would be glorified in what they were doing. I love what Exalt stands for, and it is. It's to exalt God and to bring Him glory, and that's what our lives are meant to do. So the fact that my daughter can do that in dance is incredible. Okay, so that gives you a little overview. Oh, it didn't quite come back out there like I wanted to. A big broad stroke of our mission and what we are endeavoring at Exalt. And in doing so, we obviously have grown now, which I'm very thankful for, from my first 8 students to now almost 100 students. So we're continuing to build as the programming builds, and that we finally have a facility. So lots of positive things are happening at Exalt. And I am here today, obviously, because we're asking for community awareness and support. So I use the word ask as one of our little acronym here to kind of guide this presentation today. Sorry it didn't align. It aligned when I had it on my MacBook, but here we go. So the A is for advocating for the arts. As a dance educator who is fully certified K-12, as Denise read some of my bio to you, for over 30 years, I've been involved in providing that kind of instruction for students that has the cognitive, that has the psychomotor, and all of the layers that go into a dance education program. Kind of supersedes what we see in dance studios, because I like to tap into all that kids can experience through the arts, and especially kids who are coming from areas that are from the lower demographic, where they may not have the resources. They are impacted more from traumatic experiences, and certainly being an educator at Milton Hershey School for 15 years, we were entrenched with that demographic of student. And so as that person who has been advocating for over 30 years for dance, I also recognize that dance and the fine arts are the main areas that typically will get chopped off the block in budgetary line items when folks are considering administratively, what can we afford in school districts? The school district that I grew up in Maryland, was highly supportive of arts in their high school programming, which was why I was able to build a full-fledged dance program that we took students and we traveled, we performed in festivals, we went to Disney World, we went on cruise ships. We had a really expansive program in Maryland. When I met my better half and married and moved to Pennsylvania 15 years ago, that was one of the things I felt like I became a little but much more in a vacuum, because there were not dance classes offered in high school programming in central Pennsylvania. You definitely had to go outside of the school setting. And so my goal as a advocate for dance education, for fine arts education, because our grand goal would be, as we already have incorporated musical theater, but to have the vocal instruction, to have instrumental music, and developing all those spokes of the fine arts, so kids that aren't getting it in their public educational experiences could get it at Exalt, here right in the middle of Elizabethtown. So these are some just little statistics that I had kind of pulled, or general ideas that I really feel like a person from my background, knowing that I use dance as kind of my therapeutic tool. When I was struggling, it was a place that I would just go to my basement, I would turn on music, and I would just dance it out. And I would find that relief and that kind of sense of, okay, I can get through whatever I'm facing. And even now, as I'm walking through a cancer diagnosis, I still am dancing through it. And I'm so grateful to God that, as you mentioned, the power of prayer that can uplift us. But I think finding those places, and especially for youth who don't have those resources, who are in situations, and we see the mental health statistics from COVID to today just going exponentially higher, that they are struggling. And I think the arts is a place where, when we get to be able to experience those places that are in safe environments, then kids can actually overcome things without having to be medicated by psychiatrists, and actually overcome their challenges because they're in a positive environment that's focused and faith-built, and is allowing them to unravel those places of trauma through the arts. So advocating is my number one thing. I will advocate to the day I die. I've been dancing for 48 years now, and it will be the thing that I want kids to experience and have, especially if they can't afford it, which is our next letter, S. So we are building at Exalt student scholarship programming, so that if a student wants a dance class, wants to be in musical theater, wants to be in our summer production, they can do it. And so the idea that we are developing is that all kids, not just the kids who have the financial resources, but all kids can have arts education that is top-notch in every field. Right now, like I said, we're only a dance and musical theater basis, but ideally down the road, we have all of those in place. This summer, we produced our first production We did the Little Mermaid Junior. We were hosted by the E-Town High School, and we had 2 out of our 20 cast members on full tuition scholarships. This fall, and for our 2023 season into 2024, 7 out of our 84 students right now, we've actually been adding, keep getting more and more inquiry. So we're a little bit closer to that 100, like I mentioned, are on full tuition, and those 7 are the 7 applicants. So we had 7 applicants this season for scholarships, and we were able to award all 7. Almost every single one is on full tuition. Some were able to afford a portion, and so we have built in a application process, as you can read here, before the season starts, so that the needs can be figured out. Our board will review those needs, and then ideally every single student that applies will get the scholarship funding that they need. Our tuition rates and performance and costume fees all are lower to also help subsidize. So I wanted to just point some of those little differences out. And again, sorry, this isn't aligning like I initially had it. So if you compare us to local dance studios, we are definitely trying to make the costs affordable in the community. Some registration fees and drop class fees, we don't do that. I just feel like it's important that people can come, they pay for the classes. Yes, those might help with some administrative fees that we incur, but the amount that parents are required to pay, or beyond those things, are a lot less. So for instance, I think this one's a good one to match. At a local dance studio, if you wanted to take a ballet class, a tap class, and a hip hop class, for 4 months, a fall tuition would be about $460. At Exalt, they get those 3 layers of classes for just $225. Okay, so we really try to keep costs low. We use the same performance venue at Leffler Chapel. So I want my audience to have the opportunity to have as many people there. So $8 tickets to $10 tickets versus $18 and $22 tickets. Performance fees, costume. The costume piece for me is, I think, a very different philosophy than most dance studios use, because I'm more about like, let's recycle, let's reuse, let's not make parents pay $65 per costume per dance, so that they're sitting there with these costumes in their closets they use only 2 or 3 times for pictures and their performance and maybe their dress rehearsal. My mentality and philosophy at Exalt is that we are building an inventory, so that my little ones coming in, they might get the costume from the previous class to use for their tap dance versus having to buy new costumes every year, and we just charge a rental fee. So those are some things that I've tried to embed in our programming that make it a lot more affordable for families, and especially families that we serve, which are typically your homeschool families that have lots of children and one parent incomes, since the mom is usually the stay-at-home mom doing the homeschooling for their families. So ideally, we are trying to create a system at Exalt that everybody can afford. All right, finally, the K. So I had to make a little K for construction there. We were so blessed. I can't tell you the God stories to get me into the ballroom this year were just off the charts, and I just was amazed at how he was providing for us to finally be in our own space. I literally stepped out of the boat in January, and I left my job at Milton Hershey School. I was making 6 figures. I was just, most people look at me and like, why would you leave the Milton Hershey School? Because I really felt called. I felt like God had this burning desire in me to create this. And so I said, okay, I'm going to step out. I don't even know how this is going to work, but I believe you with all of my heart, and you're going to provide. And so in March, so I step out in January, at the end of January, in the middle of the school year, at the Milton Hershey School, as the only full-time dance educator there. So I was very thoughtful about the timing and how things unfolded, and I knew that was the right time. So anyway, all that to say, in March, I was renting space at the Marriage Hub in their theater space Monday nights, and the music went out. a dance teacher's nightmare. And the kids are coming in 10 minutes. So I'm like, oh no, what am I going to do? And then I get on the phone because everything was the same. I couldn't figure out, why is my music not playing? And so after we finally figured it out and I got the boom box and Bluetooth, because we had to just go to plan B, I talked to Jeff Kime. I was like, Jeff, I don't know what happened. There was an event in there that weekend, so I figured, well, maybe somebody messed with the board, and I'm technically not as savvy. So he's like, well, come on over. So I went over, and he's like, well, let's check everything out. And so I checked everything out, and he's like, everything was fine. And so I thought, Jeff, could we look up its stairs? Because actually my husband's mentioned this to me, and every time I listen to my husband, I find that things go well for me. And so he's like, why don't you just ask Jeff about the ballroom? And I was like, okay, I'll ask Jeff about the ballroom. And so we went upstairs. He's like, Jill, I can't rent you the ballroom. I said, well, it's okay. I just would really like to see the ballroom. And we walked through. And so the long story short, through that little faux pas of my music not working that day at the theater space, we end up, and so amazing, getting to rent the ballroom. Now, renting the ballroom required that we reconstruct the ballroom. And so these are some of the pictures of our summer tour, getting everything prepared for our students' arrival in September. This is what it looked like. I don't know how to use this pointer. Sorry. Which button? Oh. I'm learning today, guys. Sorry. It's still not. Okay, well, anyway, over here. This is what it looked like in March when we were thinking about it. It was actually a pickleball court for the Marriage Hub. They would go up there because there was no ability for them to have what's it called when you occupancy. So all the agreements went into place, and then we had the flooring expert Mark Scheller from Scheller Flooring over in Lemoyne. Began the sanding project because they were beautiful wood floors. There's Jim working hard too. Painting the ceilings, getting all of that taken care of. And then we moved to some other components of, soundproofing, because it is very cavernous in there, 3,200 square, 22-foot ceilings. The plaster was kind of awry in many places, and so we just dug in, rolled up our sleeves, no air conditioning all summer long. I have to totally give props to my husband and EC Properties, because they were the ones up there sweating it out more than I was, to what it looks like now at the end of August. So we're very grateful for the space that we were able to create after 40 years of being vacant, which I think is really exciting too, that some of the revitalization that we're now seeing and being able to utilize these buildings and getting the occupancy to do so. All of that obviously costs some money. And so it was about a $51,000 construction costs and fees. Through the springtime, as I was getting the nonprofit status and everything in place through the IRS, we were able to raise, through private donations, around $8,875. I did my first silent auction, so I was really excited about that, and we raised $2,700 through the silent auction. And then finally, this last little piece of it, $21,000. I'm not the math person. That's my husband too. Were a result of the prior years of me developing the programming, and really were only there because for the complete entire time I was running Exalt, I never took money from the business. We just kept putting money into the business. So now that we have a board, I do have allocated funds for my teaching hours that I teach for Exalt, which is pretty exciting. I got my first paycheck yesterday. But that monies, we just continue to just keep pouring in. So all of that still didn't cover our expenditures. So right now we are using a loan that was given to us for 1 year at a low interest for $18,000 to cover the remaining amount of the costs that we spent to get the studio space ready for this fall. Our goal at Exalt, because I've always been of the mindset, I grew up with, my dad was actually a Milton Hershey alum. We paid our bills on time, we paid our bills in full, and we stayed and lived within our means. And so I've always lived by that mentality. So having debt in my world is really hard for me. I don't like having debt. So the $18,000 we want to pay back this year, because the business has promised if we pay that loan back, then they are going to donate the interest that is accrued throughout this year. So that $900 of interest or thereabouts would get back donated back to Exalt. And then I think I have, what's really exciting, and what's really exciting for me is that we're in the space. Although we had to delay our start because as I was envisioning, like getting ready, we did the fair. I was so excited. I could feel the tape at the end of the line. I was going to cross the finish line. The studio was ready. The open house was a success. And then that's when I found out I had cancer. And then I was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Well, make plan B. And so instead of starting right after Labor Day, which was the day that I had surgery, we decided, okay, we'll just delay it till October the 2nd. And so in the month of September, I rehabbed and started chemo. But October 2nd, boom, we hit the ground running. And the kids, as you can see, we are just having a grand time. It's growing. There's excitement. I'm so grateful. And I just can't wait to see what's going to transpire as we continue to grow at Exalt. So with that, I want to thank you for your time and any support that you might have for us. I do have a rendering. This was the dream. I had an artist come in and I was like, I need the visual so people can see what it's gonna be. And then of course, our space, which I already clicked off of. So anyway, I have time now. I guess if you have any questions for me with regard to what Exalt is about, what can you do to volunteer, to help, to support, any thoughts or questions that I could serve right now? Yes.
I heard there's a Saturday morning class and a Monday class. How many classes a week do you?
So that's how I started. When I was still teaching full-time at Milton Hershey, I rented space, and I could only rent when they weren't using the space. So my 2 classes were on Friday night and a Saturday morning. Now that I have my own space, we have classes Monday through Thursday. I have to abide by the Marriage Hub requirements because of their weekend marriage conferences that they do. So I'm actually not allowed to be in there Fridays, Saturdays, or Sundays because that would interfere with their programming. So Monday through Thursday, my classes can run anywhere from 4 to however late I want, 9 is ish, or in the morning before they're in their offices. So usually I could offer, which I tried to, but then with getting sick, I just deleted those morning classes. So like from 6:30 to 9 in the morning, I can still run classes so we don't interfere and to literally step on their head, Yes.
First of all, Jill, your enthusiasm is absolutely contagious.
Thank you.
Second of all, you look fantastic.
Thank you.
Third of all, congratulations to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
What geographical area do you draw from?
So right now, it's mostly Elizabethtown, Palmyra, some Hummelstown and Hershey area who are interested in our programming. So we have a nice little spread. I think we have some Middletown too. But again, as awareness and, the potentials of other public demographics kind of coming in, the goal would be just to reach as many in this surrounding area that we could, that are interested in getting their kids in arts. Yeah. Yes.
Would you bring a program of young people to Masonic Village and put on a show?
Well, I have reached out to Masonic on multiple fronts, and it was right after COVID, so they were very hesitant to allow us to be in that space and utilize any theater areas. But we have talked about potentially using their space. It's just been more about and I've actually had reached out to them pre-COVID, just to offer classes to the residents. Yes, and we have friends that are there as well. So we certainly would. I would love to be a whole intergenerational experience. Because I have taught anybody from 3 through senior citizens, and I love my adult classes. We have so much fun. I love all my classes, but yes.
Do you separate the facility? Because when you talked about the amount of money you put into remodeling the ballroom, that seemed like a large capital investment. Do you have any part ownership of the building?
We do not. And the trade-off was, because I'm nonprofit, they said that we have a good agreement for my monthly rental payment, because we invested a ton of our personal funds to get that ready. And so we were able to, I guess, think of it in that terms. Exalt is benefiting by us allowing us now to be building our financial storehouse, so to speak, so that eventually, it's running fully as the entity that I want it to be, if that makes sense. Did that answer that? Yeah. So down the road, we are looking into, and I even have had recently, and if I hadn't gotten sick, I was also digging into other connections for doing more community-based, like getting country line dancing or swing dance classes. So it's not necessarily all performance. Like you can come to Exalt, and we can maybe do a 4-week swing dance course for people who just want to come out and just have fun to dance, as opposed to dance for performance sake. Which now those conversations are beginning again. So having that as a rental is something that I haven't completely stepped into, but having community type things where it becomes more of an open, user-friendly curriculum, so to speak, for people who just want to maybe step in and try it on, and then go back and do whatever kind of process. Well, thank you very much. Yes.